Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
It's Thursday, and joining us today is Denis Campbell, editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine, also host of Worldview with Denis Campbell and Bookview TV on YouTube. Denis, I want you to walk us through what's going on with fracking, but before we get kind of into the political discussions, for people who may not know what fracking is, let's start there.
Well, hydraulic fracturing is a way of releasing what's called shale gas from deep within the ground. They typically drill down 1 to 3 miles, and then they drill sideways. So they first go down vertically, and then they go sideways, and they force down into the well casing fluids, much of which is water, but the rest of it, we don't really know what most of the chemicals are, except that we know that they're releasing very explosively lots of gas back up, methane, which is the primary gas that they're searching for, as well as other gases such as radon and things that we can't even imagine. Indeed, just yesterday, a truck was held on the lot because it contained very high levels of radium-226, which is a chemical from deep within the ground, and this was in one of the Pennsylvania fracking sites. So it's the problem is not necessarily the gas being released, it's that you have to force all of this water and chemicals under pressure. It's been, in some cases, causing minor earth tremors. In other places, the stuff that comes back up through the well, the water and the chemicals, you've got to dispose of those as well. And you've also got the competition for limited water, because you're talking about upwards of 1 million gallons of water being pushed down each one of these wells.
So then let's talk about the kind of developing controversy in the UK over fracking. In the US, the paradigm tends to be that if you're a Republican elected official, you're more likely to be in favor of fracking. If you're a Democratic elected official, you're more likely to be against it. How is the kind of political dichotomy shaping up in the UK?
Well, the funny thing that's happening here is that there are these licenses that have been sold for very little money right underneath our feet for people to actually do this type of drilling. So typically what they'll do is they'll put an application before the local council to then have this planning permission to do what's called a test bore drill. But the problem is that, the way the ground is, particularly here in Wales, the only way they can get to whatever it is they need to see if there is gas is to perform some fracking. And what they try to do is, wherever there's opposition that pops up, they just change the title or they change the wording and outright lie in the application so that they can get what they want. What's happening is that we have a member of the House of Lords who runs a fracturing company, the biggest in the UK, called Quadrilla. And he's publicly on record, as is the Chancellor, our Treasury Secretary, who has a father-in-law who's a lobbyist in that business. They're all on record saying that they're going to do everything they can to get fracking happening in the UK. And indeed, over the last 2 weeks, we've seen a tremendous amount of activity, including parliamentary debate, on this controversial subject.
Is there a sense, I think, it's interesting that we have kind of that's the way it's breaking down politically. When people in the US hear you talk about the Tories often, a question that I get via email is, I understand that on many of these kind of economic and resource and environmental issues, the Tories seem to be somewhat in line with American Republicans, but they can't possibly be like the Tea Party evangelical right-wing Republicans when it comes to social issues. So tackle that, Denis. I mean, is there a similarity there, or does the similarity stop when you start crossing the line into the social issues?
Mostly the social issues don't really get the kind of airing here that they do in the USA. I mean, full stop. I mean, they're really, they're very, very big, and they're very divisive. And we see what happens in the USA with Fox and others trying to take them and use them as talking points. And then, of course, MSNBC reacts to them. Here, the issues tend to fall less along the cultural issues and more along the typical privatization, big government, small government. And an issue like fracking, for example, is one where they see tremendous opportunity for money to be made, but they're not paying attention to all the environmental risks. And what we have is a situation where the media is complicit as well. I mean, 97% of climate science is out there saying that we're definitely producing too much carbon, that this fracking situation is going to just produce even more carbon. All governments, both at the Westminster level as well as in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, are on record saying they want to do more in terms of developing fuels that are more sustainably based. Yet there are signs that creeping into the dialogue are words such as a transitionary fuel, and that's clearly that's a scary term when you start to hear people go from, well, we don't really understand this and we think a lot more research needs to be done, to this could be a good transitionary fuel. That's what starts to scare people, because that gives sort of a go ahead. I mean, with your EPA in the USA back in 2005 under Cheney, basically when he used to be the chairman of Halliburton. Halliburton is the biggest producer of fracking fluid on the planet, and all of a sudden he gets the EPA in 2005 to say, not only can you not find out what's in any of the chemicals that are being pumped down into the ground, but we're not going to regulate it anyway. It's been completely exempted. So you've got all of these political sort of issues that are now sort of working their way across, and everybody here says, oh, well, our environmental standards are much higher and nothing like what's happening in the US could happen here. Well, it is happening here, and it's happening at increasingly alarming rates.
All right, fracking, know about it, know the political arguments around it, and familiarize yourself with it. Familiarize yourself with it, rather, because it is going to be...
Say that 5 times fast, David.
It is going to be a big discussion. Make sure to check out both of Denis's YouTube channels, youtube.com/worldviewshow and youtube.com/bookviewtv. Denis Campbell, editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine. Thanks for being with us, Denis.
Cheers. Have a good weekend.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.